All right, let's play. All right, cool. So basically, what are you hearing, right? So what I'm hearing is that these drums need to cut right here. This needs to be a dramatic kind of send off into the build, right? We're descending down, then bam, we jump off a cliff into the build. That's going to be cool. So the next thing we're going to do is go get this guy and let's write down snare roll. So snare roll for sure. And it's going to go for 16 bars. And so I might as well just go ahead and create that. And you can see I've already mapped all these parameters. I mean, it's just much faster for me to work this way, so I like doing that. Now it's gonna be 16 bars, okay? The PAWSA Build is 24 bars, and I found that he does that a lot, so 24 bars. And really quickly, I wanna mention why I think that's interesting. That in the PAWSA track, if you look, it's pretty clear that a lot of these sections are just 16 bar frameworks. This is a 32 bar drop. This is a 16 bar break. This is a 16 bar kind of intro bass drop. And then everything just is kind of in little 16 bar chunks. And then you get the break, which goes for 24 bars, or I'm sorry, the build that goes for about 24 bars. Where is that? Maybe about right here, because this is the end of the strip drop. That's the strip drop right there. Again, 16 bars, and then bam, you have this build for 24. Now, I think the reason why is because after experiencing a lot of 16 bar frameworks, you kind of maybe expect this to be only 16 bars, but then he takes you for another 8, and it just delays that gratification like we were saying earlier. It's going back to the contrast. It's going back to building tension by delaying gratification. So I'll move on from that. I think that's interesting, but we're going to follow his framework there. So let's go ahead and just build in the MIDI right here. So this is 16 bars, and we will create the MIDI track. And we actually don't need it that big, so I'm actually going to just kind of zoom in here like this. And I labeled what the actual note is for myself, E1. As you can see right there, I labeled what the note is. So we need to come to E1, and let's just draw 16 bars, right, like that, or some 16th notes. And we'll just go ahead and loop around this section like that, and that'll just send the loop out. So we have our snare build. Let's go ahead and just mute it for now. Another thing is that the kick has too much low end. I'm gonna see if I could just bring this guy up a little bit more here. So. And we'll just do 261. It's a C harmonic to the F. Whatever though. Now going along with what we were saying earlier, I want to use this ooh vocal as a string. Just to remind you what this vocal is, because it's been a while, but check this out. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this guy right over here, and let's see if we can use this as a string. Really quick before that, I just want to mention that this is an example of what I call double lifting. Double lifting is simply where you introduce two elements as opposed to one element, okay? But they're also lifting. So these two elements are the ones that are primarily lifting the energy in this section, okay? The snare here is lifting the energy by increasing the rhythm. The snare is playing at 16th notes, okay? That's really fast for a long period of time. Now, subconsciously, you know that this is not sustainable. You're not gonna wanna listen to 7 minutes of 16th note snare drums, right? And so your brain knows that this is gonna have to come to an end at some point. And so that's kind of why it builds tension, is because it anticipates a future release from this kind of crazy fast rhythm, okay? And so this is simultaneously building tension, and it's also picking up the speed of the track, which just brings more energy. And then here, this guy is also lifting the energy because we're introducing a high frequency sound notably the 5th scale degree. Okay, now we're in F minor, so the 5th scale degree is going to be a C. Now, I said earlier that I want to use this sound as a string, and typically in house music, if you're going to introduce a string, you're going to have it play the 5th scale degree. Okay, so if you're in G minor, you're going to be playing D, a high D. Again, we're in F minor, so this is going to be playing a high C. So we're going to have this just kind of hover over this whole section for a while. And one last thing I want to mention is that there's a kind of more specific application of this double lift, and that's called the polar lift. I call it the polar lift. And that's where you introduce two different sounds at opposite ends of the frequency spectrum. And the most obvious case that you'll find this is when the kick comes in the intro. You also have an open hat come in. Now the kick is obviously introducing low frequencies. The open hat is introducing high frequencies. So that's what I call polar lifting. But you can also apply this to different dimensions. So polar lifting here would be in the frequency dimension or the spectral dimension. But you can also think about how you can do polar lifting in mid to side, so introduce a mid sound and a side sound, or front to back, so a foreground element and a background element. And it's just fun to experiment with this, and it's fun to actually analyze tracks and see them using it, and specifically how they're using it. But right now, we're just going to be just introducing two sounds right here, not getting too crazy. Let's create a MIDI track here, and we're going to drop this guy into it like this. Change this to sampler, and we're going to do the sustain mode here with the back and forth. Let's just zoom in here and let's create some MIDI clips. So we need to go to C, and this is going to work out because we're going to be sustaining over a C, so we don't need to really change anything. And we will change the loop here. Let's see. So something like that where it's kind of pretty consistent. And anyway, so we'll have that play across, but what we need to do is get it out of the way when the other one is playing. So let's see here. We'll go get the gain, and let's just turn this down when this guy is playing, and we'll have him creep underneath here. And let's just add this, and we'll go like that, and like this, and like this. So... cool, something like that. All right, and we'll just duplicate this guy like this maybe, and then we will duplicate this guy like that, and let's just... maybe we'll have these drums come out till about here. Because it's gonna get kind of weird in the background there. Thinking about contrast, thinking about space, thinking about tension. Now, thinking about contrast, the one thing we're really missing is something on the sides here. Now, there's one thing that I'm really missing, which is kind of the more low-mid area. So I'm going to go get this long riser that I really like. And it's this guy. He's in like every single one of my sample packs, but whatever. Yeah, see, listen to that. That width and that low end, or I guess kind of like low mids, we're probably going to need to tame that a little bit. So if I go get an EQ or something right away, just take out some of that lows. Let's listen in context. So right up to there about. Cool, so immediately that sounds way bigger. Vibrations like jello, bump, bump. So we're gonna actually need to move this back. Boom. So let's cut this all out right here.
Like jello.
Yeah, there we go. And then let's cut these drums. Still feel like we can get something more on the side. So this is really filling out like the low mids on the sides and the lows. But I feel like we can get something more in the mid range. We can go get risers, but I'd like to use things from the track, actual sounds from the track, to create effects. And one of the things that we can maybe do is take this guy and create like this big wide chord. All right, let's label this one. This is gonna be high oo, and we'll call this a C, okay? Now this is fun because I love music theory and this lets me go into it a little bit. So let's duplicate this, and basically we need to create a big chord. So I'm gonna take it. And so let's figure out what the chord could be though. So this is in F minor, and so the obvious thing is let's go play a lower F down here. Immediately we get that full sound, okay? So I think that fills it out. Let's start adding then an F above here. Okay, starting to sound really full. Maybe we can just actually make the chord F minor. So F minor is gonna be F, A flat, and C. And so let's go to the A flat here. All right, and so we can go to the C right here and then go a little bit higher. So if we add the D sharp here, this is gonna be an F minor 7 because we're adding in the 7th scale degree, okay? That's where F minor 7 gets its name from. You have F minor, which is a basic triad, F, A flat, and C. F minor 7 is when you add the 7th scale degree to it. But that's pretty big. Can we take it further? So adding another F. Okay, but this would be F minor 9 right here if we add in a G. Okay, that's getting a little crazy. Okay, that's still crazy. Okay, that sounds pretty badass. I like that. And so what we could do is separate this out. Now we already have a C, and so let's just get rid of that. So I'm just gonna duplicate this out a couple times. So let's do, how many notes do we have? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional notes here. Let's see if we take this C out. I kind of like it without it. All right, so we have 4 additional notes here. It's a really nice open sound to this now. And so let's create 4 additional tracks here. So I'm gonna duplicate this 3 more times. All right, and so this is basically gonna be those notes. So let's go in order. So we're gonna take out all of these. So this is gonna be the high D sharp. So let's write that in. It's a D sharp 4. So technically an E flat, but I'll just write, I'll write E flat, okay? E flat 4. And then this guy is gonna be the A flat. So we will go like this. Okay, so this is gonna be the A flat. A flat, I think it's 3. Let's go ahead and group these and treat them as one kind of chord. Next is let's figure out where we can pan these guys. Let's see what it could sound like.
Vibrate just like Jello.
Awesome. So something like that. Let's go ahead and throw on a gain plugin over here. And we'll just have this creep up over time. Let's just draw in the automation. All right.
Vibrate just like Jello.
Bop 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 bop. So we need some kind of interesting rhythm, and keeping in the PAWSA vein, like trying to stay efficient with the production. I think one thing I could do is take this guy right here, which is the vibrate, and use that as a rhythm. Bop 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 bop. And then we can start So it could be like ba 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 ba, and then we can have him speed up over here like ba 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 ba. Maybe have the snare interact with him, so they're kind of just bouncing off each other, just speeding up in rhythm. So let's just create a new MIDI track here. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Bop, 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 something like this. Maybe something like this. Okay, and then let's just loop this. And then right here we can loop this. So I'm gonna hit Command E. Let's go ahead and loop right here. And then spread this out. Something like that. And then maybe the snares, we want to have these elements all kind of interact. That's the whole point of getting these guys to be interesting. So just looking about how the snare and this guy can interact. And obviously we have some space that the snare can do right here. And that looks like the biggest space. But if we just listen for it, maybe that's probably the better way to go. So I can hear that, right? So brr, ba-da-da, da-da-da, brr, ba-da-da, da-da-da. And so let's try that. Isolate this guy and just change this to 30-second notes because it's going to be brr, ba-da-da. And maybe just the first two, maybe the first four. Okay, and then here. And then we can speed it up right here. And then we can speed it up right here too, right at the very end. So something like, I guess what we can do is just loop around this section like that. So.
Vibrate just like Jello.
Cool, that's working for me. So the next thing that I'm hearing. All right, sweet. So let's work on destabilizing this guy. So our trusty friend AutoPan here. And now I said I want to destabilize the center image. And so I don't want to do a rate that's synced to the BPM. Let's just try to find a rate in here that's kind of chaotic. So let's set the amount all the way so we can really hear the rate properly. Let's turn this up too. And then just bring this in because now when I say destabilize the center image, just because something is in the center doesn't mean it needs to be mono. Check this out. Like, so if I have the amount like this, like even when I'm coming up to around 31.7, the sound, yes, it's moving around a little bit in stereo, but it still feels like it belongs in the center image. You can almost think of it as left, center, right, where left occupies the left 33%, the center occupies the center 33% of the space, and then the right occupies the remaining 33%. And so as long as we stay within that range, and I'm not talking about the percentage value here, I'm talking about just think about it visually, like dividing LCR up into thirds and just keeping the sound within that center 33%, it still sounds like it's in the middle, okay? But it sounds unstable there, and so that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm gonna go ahead and just automate this up. Next thing I'm hearing is let's duplicate this And what I want to do is really, again, speed up this rhythm. And we're working in smaller and smaller frameworks. As we started, we worked like way over here, working over kind of more broad ranges. But as we get closer and closer to the climax, we have to think more and more about the climax of the peak of the main break. I don't mean climax because I sometimes refer to as the main drops as the climax, but as we kind of reach the peak here of the build, we have to work in smaller and smaller frameworks. So I want to increase the energy even more right here. And so I'm thinking of introducing something even faster with the bars. So if I just take, for example, these and start filling the gaps, and then I'm just going to fill in the gaps of what we have and then kind of sneak that up. So it's almost like another kind of snare roll. So I'm going to delete this. Let's get rid of this. Delete this, get rid of this, and then maybe we can just copy this over. Okay, cool, exactly. And then so what we could do is do the gain automation and bring this up over time. Okay, so it's really just taking away the rhythm now and just pushing you to the very, very end. And we'll have it come up over maybe 12 decibels because I want it to come down a little bit more quiet or come up from a little bit more quiet of an area. 6 decibels isn't quite enough, so let's go ahead and just lift this up over time.
Vibrate just like jello.
And so it's cool because this is the first time that you're hearing vibrate like jello. That's the first and the only time you're going to hear it. And so this is kind of like taking this sound where you hear vibrate. You haven't heard that anywhere else in the track. So I'm almost previewing it before you even hear it. One thing I want to do as well is see if we can speed up the rhythm of these nods, right? Na 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 na. Now that's cool, but I don't like the fact that he's staying in the back of the mix, actually. This does a great job of defining that back of the mix, which we needed for the contrast with the drop. But I'm thinking that what if we start moving back towards the front of the mix right at the tail end of this build? Because we'll have accomplished everything that we needed to, the contrast, the building the energy, creating that huge space and pushing everything back. But then it might be a little too much when we just go right to the front of the mix again. It might be a cool contrast, but I think if we ease the listener back in a little bit more and just kind of push things really to the front and to create this just insane moment of crazy energy right here before it all gets chopped off, just to have this vocal play, that could be cool if we started bringing everything back to the front. So let's try that. I'm going to go ahead and just bring the reverb down. That's pretty much what we need to do. What if we did this? Na 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 na.
Vibrate just like jello.
Cool. So that is the wall of sound that I was thinking. Almost the wall of sound. I'm thinking that we're missing a little bit of top end, so maybe some kind of crash fill, maybe some kind of white noise. And I think we can also work in smaller frameworks still, right? And so maybe just do something in here, like a little bit of a riser, go through some effects. And then another thing I'm hearing, so if we just do a little smaller reverb on the neck here, just give a little bit of space, then that could be cool too. Create a new audio track, copy this guy right here, chop that off, let's throw a reverb on here.
Vibrate just like jello.
There we go. And what we could do is turn this reverb off at the end. Cool, so it'll shut off when the drop starts, just in case. So I'm just gonna go look for some effects. I have this big effects folder here, so I'm just gonna go through these until I find something that's cool. Basically just looking for something that can fill out this space right here, which is just before we cut into the payoff vocal. All right, and so these are some of the sounds that I found that I think could work, so we'll test them out. This one right here is basically just crashes. And what I want to do is single this guy out, this crash right here, because it's basically the longest, and I can high pass out the lows here. Might as well bring this all the way out. Have it start really high and then kind of bring more of the mids in over time. And then with this guy, this is pretty cool. And so that's pretty cool, but I was thinking maybe just scrunching these guys together like this. Bam, and then just bringing it in. And then this guy actually was another sound that I found that could work right here as well. So check this out. And so one of them's going down, one of them's going up. This one is going up. This one's going down. So having them together I thought was kind of a cool thing. This guy was pretty cool too. And finally, obviously all these need work, just showing the ideas, because I think it can get it there. And then this one is really cool. I think I can have that just play in the background across the whole thing. So I'm thinking about just actually soloing this right here and having this kind of play throughout the entire... Yeah, having this kind of slowly come up over time. Cool, and so we can see like we're just pushing the energy right here. We're working in these smaller frameworks towards the end to just kind of lift that energy even more right here, and then a lot of excitement right before the cutoff for the payoff. And so just about making these sounds work. This one's an F sharp, so the original track, so I'm just gonna go ahead and transpose it down one, just to be safe. Now for this swooping kind of sound, I just want to gain him up over time. Now starting at the beginning, I want to be able to hear the swoop come up a little bit in volume over this 8-bar section. And so I'm going to adjust the minimum value here in the macro mapping so that I can hear it kind of towards the tail end over here. So I'm going to loop kind of towards the end, and let's just adjust this mapping. All right, so -30, that might do it for now. I might want to take out some of the top end though. Just gonna use a high shelf down here, and so I guess around 4,000 is a decent place to cut off the top there. And then definitely need to fix this, so we're gonna go get a high pass filter for the crash cymbal. And so what I'm going to do is just find the minimum value that I want here. All right, so 1,000 it is. And then we'll just change the minimum here to 1,000 in the macro mapping for the minimum value on the high pass. And then we'll slowly come down from the top here, I'm thinking, over the course of the build. Maybe we can speed this up too, something like psh, 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 psh.
Like Jello.
And then finally, this last guy is the one who's kind of being a little bit troublesome, getting in behind the crash a little bit. So if we solo these two together, it might help figure this out. Okay, because they're kind of both occupying that top end. So if I put this guy into a wooden room, so this reverb right here just pushes the sound, the laser sound here, behind the crash. And a wooden room is gonna dull the sound. So a tiled room brings a lot of excitement forward, but a wooden room is gonna dull the sound, because if you think about a wooden room, the wood is gonna absorb those, especially the high frequencies, but a tiled room is gonna reflect those high frequencies. And so a wood room is gonna sound duller naturally. So I thought a wood room would be a good fit here to push this sound kind of underneath the crash. So let's test this. This is all the work that we've done today in this video. And basically, let's start from the strip drop. Let's see if we can work through the main break, work through the build, and see if we can land into this drop, and let's see if it sounds good. All right, let's check this.
Break just like Jello.
All right, cool. So this is a sweet lesson here, right? Because we have this crazy wall of sound going on. Then when we drop into this drop, it doesn't land in the way that we want it to because it's not as sparse as we need it to. We need this to break down, okay? Check this out. If I play from right here and just turn off the vocal, it's gonna sound a lot better. Check it out.
Break just like Jello.
Way better, right? That's because we had to take all that out. We needed to simplify. This is just chaos, right? This is another contrast, right? We've created this chaos right here, and we need to move into something that's very orderly and sparse. So this chaotic wall of sound into this orderly, sparse arrangement of just the bass and the beat, just the groove. And so that gives us direction for the next stage. So this is the main break. We've already done the climax, we've done the main break, and now we need to finish out the rest of the arrangement, basically, which is gonna be getting this second climax and then moving into the outro, and then getting this first kind of break here, setting up the first climax, and then just basically doing the intro.